Hello, I'm Carl Jacobs and I'm co-founder and CEO of Apicbase. At Apicbase, we are building the world's best food and beverage management platform. But in this podcast series, it's all about finding answers on how to grow and scale your food service business. I'm talking to numerous experts and industry professionals who are passionate about building a healthy food service industry. Join me on this fascinating journey of entrepreneurship in food. Hello everybody, welcome again to a new episode of the Foodservice Growth Show. I'm very happy today to have a conversation with Dean Wilson Hartles, who is the Director of Food and Drink at TRG Concessions in the UK, which is a part of the Restaurant Group PLC. Welcome, Dean.
Hello, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for being on the podcast. I have always the same first question. Who is Dean and what has he been doing in the past?
So, who is Dean? Dean Wilson Hartles, as you said, Director of Food and Drink for the Restaurant Group, looking after TRG Concessions, which is a pillar of the business. So it's split into three pillars. We have TRG Concessions, which look after the travel hubs within the UK. We have Brunning and Price Pubs, which is a pub division, which has pubs all across the UK, and we also have Wagamama's. But my focus is purely looking after the UK airports and any travel hubs that we have within our business. Been cooking since 1985. Sounds a very long time ago. Started off as a young boy, left school on a Wednesday. Got a job on a Friday in a gentleman's club in Piccadilly, a well-known one called the Reform Club. Just started off not as a chef, started off as a maintenance porter, changing light bulbs and painting walls. And then after 6 months, got talking to the kitchen team and just fell in love with the chefs, with the kitchen, and just asked, can I do a couple of days a week in there? And before you know it, a year later, I was in the kitchen of the Reform Club and just learning a bit, and then started my chefing career. Back in 1985. So worked my way through London. Took a job wherever I can to get experience. Tried to do that work experience where you worked, went to college. Started off in a little restaurant, and I always had goals I wanted to reach every couple of years. Done obviously Westminster College, which was well-known college back then, still is now. And then just worked my way through London. And I worked with people like the Roos brothers for a little while in the City of London. I worked with Mark Hicks, who's a well-known chef that run the Caprice and the Ivy. And then I just worked my way again into some fine dining restaurants, a well-known one called Greens in Mayfair, which was Simon Parker Bowles, which is obviously to do with the Royals. Mm-hmm. Went on to work with Oliver Paynton at the Atlantic Bar and Grill, Candlewick Room Restaurant, and then I sort of like took a little bit of a step back. So I've done all the fine dining sort of stuff and casual dining, then went a different avenue. And went into a wine bar. So I went into a wine bar group in the city, done quite a few years there. And then I worked with a company called Benugo, well-known company in London. Mm-hmm. They look after all like the museums across the UK, Scotland, place like that. So I run the V&A Museum for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And then got asked to come and join TRG back then, nearly 11 years ago. Come on as a development chef, had my vision of what I wanted to do in the airports, because obviously airport food has the perception of being frozen, expensive, not good quality. So I had a vision that I wanted to change that within TRG Concessions within a couple of years and just challenge the teams on what they've been doing in the past, which is very successful. But how can I challenge them going forward? And how can I nurture the guys that we had the way I wanted them to work? Been here 11 years. COVID changed it. We had quite a few sites. Then we shut them down, and then we reopened. My role had changed. I've become head of food. And then about a year and a half ago, I've become a director of food and drink and look after the whole of the concessions business now, and
All right.
Barburrito as well.
And that's where we are today. I
Yeah,
hear.
it's been a long career,
Yeah,
1985 to now, very long.
it's pretty interesting actually. You've done the whole lot, huh? Fine dining and quick service. Do you miss the fine dining?
If I get asked this question a lot, if I had my way and I was younger, I would have loved to have done Michelin star stuff, and I think that's what's missing from my career is that proper, full-on Michelin star grounding, which the youngsters get now. I miss all that modern day technology that I never had. Very old school. I've come from the old school background of cooking. Now everything is, it's sous vide, it's boil in a bag stuff, it's all sorts of gastronomy that I think I would struggle with in this day and age, just being that old school type person.
Yeah, but you do use these new techniques within the restaurant group, or is this something that is then you're immune to them?
No, we don't really use them. I mean, I think maybe in the Brunning and Price they might use a little bit. I think Wagamama's, it's very fast paced in Wagamama's. In the concessions business, we just don't have time in that airport environment. It's open, thousands of passengers through the doors. We haven't even got time to think sometimes. So trying to introduce, water baths, sous vide, is quite hard. I'm not saying in the future we can introduce some of that sort of stuff. We are looking at new technology back of house as it comes to cooking kit, because I think when you're innovating, you're not just innovating on food, you've got to innovate on equipment as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned that when you joined TRG, you wanted to bring some of your vision. What is that vision exactly? Or what was that vision?
Well, the first thing was freshness. As I said, in an airport, the perception is everything's frozen, comes out quick, it's very expensive. And I just wanted to do a bit of polishing up, if you can say that, and just like, how can we make that dish elevate to the next level? How can we give those guests that come through, because they are a captured audience, how can we make their dining experience special in an airport before they go on holiday? So my vision was always about freshness, coming into the menu, niche products, things that the passenger might not have seen before. So it's just looking at the menu. It's not all about burgers and just a plain cheeseburger. How can we elevate that burger to the next level?
And did you succeed?
Yeah, I did. It was a challenge for the first couple of years, because to change everyone's mindset is quite hard. When you've got a business where they've all been quite stuck in their ways for a long time, to change that mindset, to bring fresh burgers in, to make sauces on site, to make different things on site, you've got to get the buy-in from the teams, and that's really important. If you can't get that buy-in from the beginning, you're fighting a losing battle. And I took them on that journey with me, from the regional chefs down to the head chefs in the site. Come on this journey with me, and we're going to make it successful. And we did. I mean, we've opened some amazing sites across UK airports and worked with some amazing people. And even to this day, we're still doing some of that stuff.
The gut feeling would say that once you go fresh and you go on site with the creation and the preparation of certain dishes, that food cost becomes an issue. Is that something that you experienced as well? And how did you kind of keep this under control to, because probably they did the frozen thing to keep the food cost low. And how did you deal with that?
I mean, look, back when I started, food cost is always important on every menu. And every time you design a menu, that's the first thing you think about is the GP. We didn't have the inflation we did then than we do now. So it was a lot more easier to convince people. Nowadays, you've got to look at the ingredient. You can't just willy-nilly put stuff on the menu and then look at the cost later. You've got to look at it now. Yeah, you have to menu engineer stuff. which
Mm-hmm.
is hard. But I'm always about the freshness and the quality because we have got a captive audience, and I think it's really important to give that captive audience what they want. There's so many cooking programs on the telly now. People watch them. They're not silly. The
Mm-hmm.
guests, they
Mm-hmm.
know what they want. They know what they're eating. So yeah, it's always been a challenge, and it's always at a chef's mind, at the forefront of his mind. But I'd say it's more of a challenge now, the last 2 years, than it was 8 years ago.
Are there stuff that you can't make anymore that you could have made 8 years ago, where you say, this is definitely no go because of GP?
Not always because of GP. I think I look at labour as well.
Mm-hmm.
Times have changed with COVID. Staff are not there like they always used to be. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got to help out the units as well. So if I can, rather than ask someone to stand over a stove and make a sauce for an hour and a half, can I get that recipe made by a supplier and it comes in already made for us?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it will be a little bit more, but I've taken the pressure off that site
Yeah.
to make that product. And the same with the burgers. We used to make burgers. Now I give him a recipe to the butcher. He makes the burgers. They come in fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways around. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I'm very old school. I wanted everything made fresh. I was never one to say, oh my God, I'm going to get this coming in already made. I would challenge the guys to make it. But when you stand, sometimes got to stand back, look at the operation and go, you know what? These guys need a hand. So try and give them as much help as possible
Mm-hmm.
and let the supplier do the work. And I think that's what suppliers are there for nowadays.
Yeah, that's a question I had actually. I mean, it sounds like you set up great partnerships with your suppliers then.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's important in a business like ours to build up a relationship over years with the suppliers because then they want to work with you to create what you're doing. And they come into our units, they see what we're doing. They will then put it to us. We can make this for you. We can make that for you. Brilliant. If you can get the taste right they'll want, just get it in and just put it on the menu. So it's important to have that relationship with all our suppliers.
What is leading when you talk to a supplier? Is it pricing or is it quality?
Right. If I put Dean's hat on, it would be quality.
Mm-hmm.
If I put my business hat on, it's pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Pricing, then quality. Again, that would have been different 8 years ago to now.
Mm-hmm.
Quality would have been at the forefront. But I think nowadays,
It's a
it's got to be
balance.
pricing because, you can't start charging so much for a burger. There's obviously a glass ceiling up there and you can't smash that glass ceiling.
No, I get that. Well, that was a running start, actually. Thank you very much for that. I wanted to focus a little bit also on the restaurant group itself.
Okay.
Can you tell a little bit about how it came into being, what kind of business structure is behind it, how many locations?
I mean, I can mention what I know. I mean, obviously, TRG concessions. We've got 35 units across multiple UK airports.
Mm-hmm.
That's Heathrow, Gatwick, Luton, Manchester, Liverpool, East Midlands, all the way down to Bournemouth and as far up as Aberdeen. So, and in between, so we've got Glasgow and Edinburgh. Mm-hmm. So a mixture of casual dining, pubs, franchise partners. Running the price, I think I've got about 80 across the southeast and up in the north. And then in Wagamama's, I think they're sitting on about 168 sites at the moment, as far as I know.
Yeah. And I hear you say 35 units in what you are kind of managing.
Yeah, in the concessions, yeah.
In the concessions. How is this food and beverage structured within these 35 units? Are they 35 unique units, or are you kind of standardizing and having a standardized menu across the board?
Every unit is different. So we have, obviously, like I said, we have a few franchise. So we work with people like Archie's Burgers in Manchester, San Carlo. We've got a franchise, another one in Manchester, Apri, which is part of the ETM group. Mm-hmm. Then we have our own units, which is pubs. So pubs are quite big in the airports. So each pub has a different menu. So we have an Italian, which is up in Aberdeen, which is a different menu to another restaurant. So every site has a different menu. They're not a standardised menu. We'll have standardised products. So what fresh burger we use in one will be used across multiples, and the same with the bun, the chips, and some sauces. But yeah, I've got a food team of 2 exec chefs, innovations manager, and they split themselves and work on those menus and present to me. So yeah, it's not easy when you're trying to come up and create menus each year. And then we work closely with the franchise partners. So they'll put a menu in front of us and we will adapt that menu to airport trading.
Yeah. And how many items are you on in any given moment serving to the customer? How many different items? I mean, like 36 or 35 units, all different menus. How many menu items are there?
Well, I mean, back in the old days, menus in the airports were quite big. You had 40 plus dishes on a menu. Over time, we've brought it down because I think the trend now is smaller menus, focus on what you've got. Obviously, with the cost factor and the quality factor, we need to bring that down. For example, an average breakfast menu in TRG has anything from 12 to 18 dishes on a menu. So that's covering a wide range of offers. So making sure you've got vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, your traditional English. And then the main menus, we work on about 20 to 25 dishes, depending on the brand. And again, that's a wide range of dishes, starting from burgers, fish and chips is massive in an airport, to pizzas, to small plates, minimal desserts. But yeah, they've all got the same sort of structure, but all very different, but using the same ingredients. So you've got to be clever. Rather than having 6 different burgers in the business, we have one great burger, and that gets used in multiple restaurants across the brand. So lots of food going out of our sites.
Yeah. And if you compare, for example, airports, are they mainly driven by drinks, or is food a substantial part of the revenue?
Again, it depends what airport. Some of our sites are 70-30 dry to wet. Some are more wet than food. It just depends on what airport, the demographics, the brand. I mean, if you go in some of our pubs, they are packed in the morning, everyone's eating breakfast, but also on the other hand, everyone's drinking alcohol as well and coffee. So it just depends the type of, what sort of unit it is, will determine the split of wet to dry.
Yeah. And another question that popped in my head is how many times a year do you refresh the menu? Is this like a one-time thing?
Yeah, I think back in the day we used to do a one menu change a year with a little tweak, half yearly. Obviously, with the cost of menu prints and stuff like that, we've reined it back a bit now. It's very different in an airport to high street, so you don't always get the same passengers fly out. So we try and do one nice change a year, and throughout the year we have some limited time offers, which is focused on some drinks, Christmas stuff, just to freshen it up. But yeah, it got a bit much where you was trying to do it twice a year for the teams, because obviously in an airport there's peaks when they get busy in the summer season. We don't do no development because they're getting absolutely hammered. So we try and stay away from that. And that's when I made the decision to do a once a year change, which I think that's ample now. Just to try and obviously keep menu print costs down and obviously the ingredient cost down as well.
Talking about ingredient cost, how crucial is inventory management in an airport operations like yours or travel locations? And in that sense that is this like a high traffic volume you need to constantly reorder, or do you have vast amounts of stock constantly lying around?
No, we don't. We try and let the sites not have a lot of stock lying around. Obviously, they need enough stock to get through a couple of days, but also some of our sites get 3-day-a-week deliveries, 5 times a week deliveries. And in an airport, you can't just rack up and deliver food. You need to book it into consolidation. That needs to be scanned through security. Then it needs to come upstairs to the unit. So it's a long, long process. It could get delivered at 2 o'clock in the morning, but you won't get your goods until 10 o'clock that morning. So you've got to make sure that you've got enough backup to see you through a busy morning before your next delivery comes in. And that's not on food and drink. That's on everything from chemicals and, consumables. You've got to be ahead of the game, especially in the busy Heathrow sites.
Can you give me an idea on how you work together with the franchisees and the franchisors, should I say, and what is the relationship you have with them?
Yeah, so obviously, if I take someone like San Carlo, for example, well-known Italian restaurant based up in the north, Manchester, really big, well-known. They have a very big menu, and that's their brand. Without damaging their brand, we work really closely with them. So I will obviously meet their CEO, their exec chefs. We'll look at a menu and how we can adapt that, like I said, without damaging their brand, to implement in an airport. Obviously, on a high street, you can sit in their restaurant 2 to 3 hours. In an airport, you've got to get food out within 15 minutes, the same food that they serve on the high street, 15 minutes to a passenger that wants to get to a gate to catch his flight. So we make sure we work together really closely, from everything from the drinks menu to the food menu all the way through, to make sure what we're serving represents the brand on the high street really well. Then we meet up a few times a year. We have quarterly meetings, but then they can also come in and audit our sites at any time they want without telling us. And then they'll feed back to the wider team. Great service, great food. This could be doing a little bit better. It weren't as slick there. So we have to work really closely with all the franchise partners. And that includes the airports as well. The airport is our client. We've got to make sure that our sites are tip-top as well.
One question that I hear, or not question, but a remark, something that I hear quite often, and maybe you are also confronted with that, is ESG. It's the new green. How is your customer, the airports? Are they already asking you about this, and are you dealing with this already, or is this something coming up?
Look, I think TRG are ahead of the game. In concessions, we removed plastic straws before COVID. So it's ahead on the game there. I sit on some, obviously, meetings a lot around the ESG. Yes, people, I think, are aware of it in the airports. The airports are, definitely. They're all about sustainability. We're looking how we can get, obviously, the carbon footprint on menus, which I think for us is a little bit further away than it is on some other parts of the business. But we all do take it seriously. Everything down to gas consumption, electricity, when to switch on stuff. It's very important, like I said, not just to the airport, but to the business. And now the company are working with a company called Climato that obviously will start showing the carbon on the menus. They're trialling out, I think, the Wagamama sites first to see how it is. And then they're going to try and filter it into the rest of the business. So, yeah, it's very important, sustainability and that ESG piece. It's high on the agenda of the business.
All right. You mentioned earlier that COVID was a big change, or at least that it did a big impact, of course. Nobody could fly anymore, so you had to kind of probably close all the airports and all of that.
Yeah.
What was the change, and how big was the change before and after COVID for this industry?
I think, massive. For us to shut down, I remember the day when we got the phone call, and to shut down all those sites in an airport, to give the food away. No one knew what was going to happen. We all thought we'd be back to work. And then obviously it went on longer than we thought. And then a lot of the guys, I think, not just in the airports, but I think hospitality lost a lot of good people. I think people started to go back home. I mean, we got a lot of Portuguese people. I think they went back to Madeira and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you're in limbo. You just don't know what's going to happen. And I think I think hospitality become a scary place to work. Like I said, you just didn't know. So, you all work so closely on a kitchen in the front of house. I think people just wanted to get out of that obviously industry straight away.
Yeah.
Coming out of it, I mean, I remember walking around Luton Airport with my new boss. There was 8 of us, and there was only no more than 20 people in the Luton Airport terminal. Mm-hmm. And then the prep that was only open in 1 hour intervals. And it was just eerie. And then you just walk through the terminal, no one there where it's usually hustle and bustle. And you see all your sites shut up, gathering dust. And you're just thinking, when are we going to open again to get everyone back up and running? But then we did. And we come back with a bang as well. So did the, obviously, aviation come back as well at the same time.
Absolutely. And aviation has never done better than now, actually. Is this the same? Do you if you look at, post-COVID, are there any positives coming out of this period as well?
Yeah, I think post-COVID, I think aviation come back, like I said, with a bang. And it was doing as good as 2019. Mm-hmm. And I think it's still doing well now. You can tell, I mean, passenger numbers are up. But also I think now the cost of living crisis is starting to take effect when people are eating out in the airports. Because I think people now are looking at things and going, we're going on holiday. Do we spend our money in the airport? Instead of having 4 pizzas, 4 chips, I think now they're having 2 pizzas and 3 chips. So, yeah, I think people are thinking about what they're spending at the airports before they get on, or they're bringing their own food through security and sitting in the lounges just eating their packed lunch.
Yeah. That is annoying.
Yeah, it is for us, but or they're going to buy meal deals and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it is that whole save some money.
And how do you adapt to that? Because of course that's new reality. So how do you make sure that you don't lose out?
I think it's quite hard when you've got a casual dining restaurant because yes, we can get people come through the door, they want a pizza. I mean, we're finding out now that people, I don't know, they bring their sandwiches, they sit at our tables, but they buy a couple of pints of lager. So we can't really chuck them out because they're still spending, but it's not just in our units, it's in all the units in the airports. You see it everywhere, people undoing foil or getting a Pret and buying a drink from us. It's just really hard.
Yeah. You now are with the restaurant group, I believe, 10 years, you said?
Yeah, at the end of this year, next January will be 11 years, yeah.
How did you see the industry change in those 11 years?
It's moved on, like I said earlier. I mean, when I started, it was very old school cooking. Time's gone on, there's modern techniques. I think chefs now, I mean, the youngsters, they want to come out of college and earn big money. Whereas back in the day, you had to have your training. You had to go through the process to get to the top. And it was very hard. I think now the youngsters can get to the top a lot more quicker. And I just think the eating habits have changed a lot as well. Back then, there weren't as much on the telly than there is now. So like I said, you got the Master Chefs, you got Great British Menus. People look at these and then they expect to see a lot of this stuff in the industry without going to Michelin-star restaurants.
Yeah, so they become more demanding.
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, people know what they want to eat now. They are demanding. Guests are demanding always, but the guest is always right.
That's for sure. That's hospitality. Yeah. What hospitality is for.
You can't argue with the guest.
You mentioned that there were changing eating habits. What are these habits that you see emerging, let's say, and where are customers more sensitive to now than they were, let's say, 10 years ago?
Price. I think the price is another thing now, isn't it? I mean, even the Michelin-star restaurants now. I mean, back in the day, go to Marco Pierre White, it costs you an arm and a leg per head. Now they're all doing deals. Everyone wants to go and have a 3-course meal at Tom Kerridge in London. You can get £30-40. You wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago. So I think that's the big change as well. Is people are looking out for these deals now as well. So if you can eat in a Michelin-star restaurant for lunch, 2-course, 3-course for under £50, you're going to go there instead of £200 a head.
Yeah. Is this because there's too much competition?
I think there is now. I mean, you've only got to walk through Soho in London. I mean, every other door is a restaurant. And they're not bad restaurants. They're good quality restaurants. And if you haven't got a restaurant, you've got a great pub opening up that's obviously pulling in all the people there as well. So the competition out there is massive. I mean, QSR brands are taking over the world at the moment. I mean, I've never seen so many QSR brands on the high street than there is now. And they're great brands. And I mean, I see something on social media the weekend. There was one brand. It was the queues were massive in the UK to get into this one QSR brand. I mean, they was queuing all night to get into this one brand. It's unbelievable. And I think QSR could be the way forward, I think, now, to be quite honest.
How do you set yourself apart in such a competitive world, especially from a food perspective?
You've got to still have great menus. You've got to have, the price has got to be right to attract everyone. And the quality's got to be there. I think the minute you start dumbing down quality and people notice it, they'll go to your competitor, even though your competitor might have already dumbed down the quality. So you've got to be ahead of the game on not only quality, freshness, but trends. Trends is the other thing as well that you need. You can't have trends that you had 5-6 years ago. You need to have the stuff back on. Even if you only have it on the menu for 6 months, you're ahead of the game. And again, it all comes down to that TV that people are looking at, what's going on the telly, magazines, what people are talking about. So that's what sets us apart, is how can we be ahead of the curve.
And does plant-based burgers are a part of that? Or is this something that's not something on your menu? No,
I mean, look, we've had plant-based stuff on the menu quite a few years. Again, we've gone through the phases of looking at the vegetarian burger, vegetarian sausage, vegan burger, vegan sausage. We've looked at the fake meats. You know, I think veganism is here to stay. But I think, again, I don't think people want the fake meats no more. I think they want the plants, things made from vegetables again, because it's better for them. So we are slowly looking at that whole plant-based thing again, and trying to remove fake meats where possible. I mean, it was great a couple of years ago. But again, now people are looking at what is in that vegan sausage, what is in that burger, what is on that dish. Is it fake? Is it plants? So I think for us, it's making sure we've got the right product in the right unit.
That's quite interesting remark, actually. I don't often hear that distinction. We talk a lot about, sustainability and non-food, non-meat, etc. The change in proteins, but I never heard the remark of fake meat into let's say a real substance which is not called meat but is just a plant, which is of course better for everything.
There's some great meat. There's some great fake meats out there. I'm not going to say there's not. I've tried hundreds, but I just think people now, they are looking for that plant version of it. I don't know why. It's what people want, and we get asked for it all the time.
Yeah. How do you find this balance between the classics on your menu and the new trends? And how do what's the velocity of the change that this is going through?
Well, I mean, in an airport, we have to have the classics. If I tell you the top sellers, I mean, I've done the most amazing menus over the years. And then when you put the menu out, you do the training, everyone's excited. Oh my God, this dish. The minute the menu goes out to the passenger or the guest, I can tell you the top sellers will be a full English breakfast in the morning, in the afternoon, a burger of some kind, and fish and chips. Because that's what the people travelling want to eat.
Yeah.
And then in between, you'll get a great dish that you've developed that someone will have, but they'll always link back to those classics on the menu because that's what they know well. You'll get people trying the new stuff, but fish and chips, every airport site has a fish and chips, apart from one of our Italian brands. But they will be the top seller every quarter, along with the burger, the chicken burger, and the brunch breakfast at lunchtime.
So in the end, however, how we think how original we are, in the end, we all like fish and chips.
That's it. And you would never be able to take certain dishes off the menu, which I've tried over the years. And you'll always find they will work their way back onto a menu because a passenger has asked or the airport's asked. And then you need to just, look, we can't muck around with the classics, but we can do little tweaks to them to make them all different in their own way.
All right. Dean, this was a very interesting conversation. I have one final question for you. We've talked a little bit about trends, but can you look 5 years ahead? Where will we be with the industry?
I think we'll be more QSR within 5 years. I think the high street we'll still have the niche restaurants, but I think QSR is going to take over your chicken brands, your other QSR brands, your burrito brands out there. I think they're going to hit by storm. You can just see it now. They're building up. The momentum's building. Will they last for 5 years? Yes, I think they will. But we'll still have some high-end restaurants within the high street and hotels. In airports, airports look for freshness every few years, which we know because we're in that business. I think the airport dining experience will change as well. I think they're looking at QSR within airports a lot more now. And I think slowly the pubs will stay there, but I think slowly some casual dining will be turned into other sort of restaurants. But yeah, that's quite a tough question because within 5 years, I'd like to think I'll be retired as well and not in the industry. But definitely 100% see QSR, a lot of coffee and bread options with back in the airports and on the high street as well.
All right. That is promising to be a final exciting 5 years of your career then.
Well, I hope so. I'd like to think it might be a little bit less. But yeah, look, I'll give it the all until the end and keep developing with my food team. No matter what gets chucked at us, we always give it a go in the airports. And if we can make it work, we'll make it work. And then, we'll see.
All right. Dean Wilson Hartles, thank you very much for this conversation. And to my listeners of the Foodservice Growth Show, thank you very much for tuning in. This is already, we already have more than 20 episodes, which you can check online on the foodservicegrowthshow.com. So feel free to tune in and listen to some more extra podcasts if you feel like it. But for now, thank you very much. Thank you, Dean, for joining me, and see you soon.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.